I am Jacob, and what you will hear today is one of many stories that happened to me and no one believed it. I told you last time about the fishing boat that kills everyone who works on it, and that made me extremely frustrated. I felt that I was somehow responsible for all those who lost their lives on the boat, Paradise, especially when no one believed me, and I had no choice but to jump off the ship. I wanted to survive and not become a sacrifice for Captain Gerald to offer to the sea in order to obtain more large and giant fish. Fortunately for me, I was rescued by a large ship. It was a passenger ship carrying hundreds of passengers. It was not as luxurious as the cruise ships that resemble floating hotels, but it was carrying a lot of passengers between the continents. When they rescued me, I decided to ask them to work even temporarily with them, especially since the trip takes 15 days until it returns again to a port close to the ship repair workshop where the cruise ship that I work on is being serviced. I actually got the job. It was simple cleaning work. I was participating with a large team in cleaning the rooms on the ship, and this time I was cleaning the passengers' rooms. The matter was completely new to me, especially since the passengers on that ship were from many regions and countries, and of course each of them had his own way and style, whether in dealing with us as a cleaning team or in dealing with the room itself. It was normal in the rooms of most of the ship's passengers, but it was very strange in some other rooms. I witnessed many terrifying experiences on board that ship, and as usual, no one believed me, so I decided to tell you about them one by one. This time I was cleaning on the second floor of the ship. It was known that the passengers of this floor were from the wealthy class, as the first and second floors from the top were the highest in price. That is why the cleaning team manager stressed to everyone every time to deal with the passengers with complete caution, those rooms and their belongings, because they are most likely either very important people or influential people, and therefore we must deal with them in a way that suits them. I started working on cleaning passenger rooms 2 days after I was rescued, and my workplace was the second floor. I was accustomed to dividing rooms with colleagues in the cleaning team, meaning that each person responsible for cleaning the floor had to take care of a specific number of rooms, and for this reason I often received, in the group of rooms in the middle, things were going normally until one of the colleagues suddenly felt ill, and here my other colleague and I had to cover his position until he returned to work again, and for this reason we decided to divide the rooms among ourselves. My colleague decided to clean the first half of the rooms, and I decided to clean the second half of the rooms. I actually started cleaning. It was difficult because the number of rooms was large, but that was okay. I had to continue. I reached the last room, which was completely strange. The room was completely empty. There was no furniture like the rest of the rooms. Even the carpet that was placed on the floor was not present. Instead, there was a type of fabric spread on the floor in the room. In one corner of the room, there was a thin mattress with a very thin mattress on it. As for the rest, the room was filled with candles, incense, and many drawings of elephants with many patterns, and a number of other animals and birds hanging on the walls. I didn't know how to clean that room, but I decided to do this task because it was the last room, and as soon as I finished it, I would be able to return to my room and get some rest. I started cleaning the floors and making the bed, and I had nothing more I could do, and then I went to the bathroom too. I cleaned it, and while I was in the toilet, I heard the door of the room open, and it seemed that there was more than one person entering the room. They were talking about something called the elixir of youth. I do not know whether there is actually a medicine that can make a person return to his youth again, or what they mean by elixir. I finished cleaning the toilet and knocked on the door so that he would know that I was inside the toilet, and here I went out and found 2 people standing in front of me in the room. The first looked to be around the age of 30, and he was wearing strange clothes, consisting of pieces of colored fabric, but wrapped around his body. He was dark-skinned and appeared to be strong. The second was a man in his 50s with white hair, wearing an expensive-looking suit and an eye-catching gold watch. As soon as I left the toilet, the old man became confused and excused himself to leave, promising that he would return again to talk to the man. The young man looked at me and told me that his name was Rang and that he was a Buddhist priest. He thanked me for what I had done in the room. I told him that this was my job and I was doing it. I asked him if he needed any help with anything before I left. He thanked me and extended his hand into one of the bags. He took it out. He gave me some strange-looking candy, and here I thanked him and carried the candy and left his room. The candy looked strange and had a strong smell, so I didn't feel like eating it. I held the candy in my hand and stood outside the room examining it. Then my other colleague passed by me and asked me about the candy. I told him that the Buddhist priest had given it to me, and then he asked me to taste it, so I gave it all to him and told him to do what he wanted. I will not eat it anyway. My colleague actually took the candy and looked happy. He left immediately, and I also moved to my room. The day had been hard, and I had put in a lot of effort and needed to rest. Before I went to bed, I passed by my colleague who fell ill yesterday, and I tried to talk to him and check on him, but unfortunately I did not find him where he was, and when I asked those in the room with us, they told me that our colleague had been transferred to the ship's clinic and most likely would not survive. And here one of them said, "This will not be the first time." I did not understand what he meant, so I asked him, but I noticed that everyone was looking at him threateningly, as if they were asking him not to say anything, and indeed my colleague evaded answering the question, evaded the entire room, and left. I was feeling extremely exhausted, so as soon as I sat on the bed, I fell into a deep sleep, even before I changed into my work clothes. During my sleep, I was suffering from many nightmares in which I saw the Buddhist priest chasing me and wanting to remove my heart from my body, but whenever he approached me, I would run away and jump in the water. I woke up after several hours and many horrible nightmares. I had no explanation for these horrific nightmares, especially since I only spoke to the man for a few seconds, and he treated me in a very kind way and even gave me some candy, so there was no need for everything I saw during my sleep. But I thought it might have something to do with it. With my horrible experience on the ship Paradise, I did not care much about it and decided to spend a fun night among my colleagues. Then I went to the bed of one of the colleagues and began to ask him about spending time on the ship. He told me that everyone goes up to the deck in the evening to share games and drinks, but they were careful to finish early so that they could get a good amount of sleep, especially since the work had become very difficult recently due to the strange diseases that the cleaning crew on the ship were afflicted with. I tried to understand more from him behind what he was saying, but he asked me to wait until we were alone, and then he'll tell me what he knows. Minutes later, my colleague who was helping me clean the rooms on the second floor entered the room. He appeared to be very ill. As soon as the rest of the colleagues saw him, they gathered around him in concern and decided to take him immediately to the doctor's office on the ship. I was looking at him in amazement, as he was in good health and was completely normal a few hours ago. What happened to him, and how could someone get sick like that in such a short period of time? Here, I wanted to go with him to the doctor's office to check on him. When I started to move, I noticed that my colleague, who promised me that he would tell me more, was holding my hand as if he was preventing me from going. My colleague's name was Jamal, and he was of African origin, and he was in his early 20s. The room at this time was completely empty, with only me and Jamal in it, who sat next to me and began speaking in a low voice and telling me that the management on the ship had prevented them from speaking about what was happening to the cleaning crew. Here I asked him, "What happens to the cleaning crew?" He told me that since the beginning of this trip, on a daily basis, one of the cleaning workers fell ill suddenly and without any prior warning. They thought it was normal at first, but as it happened repeatedly to more than 4 people, it became terrifying and suspicious. Jamal told me that the reason they accepted my cleaning work in the first place was the huge shortage of cleaning crew on board the ship. Usually, there are more than 20 people working in the cleaning team, but unfortunately, 9 of them have fallen ill so far, the last of whom was Mark, whom we told colleagues a few seconds ago to the doctor's room on the ship. I was very frightened by what he said, and I did not know how to respond. But he continued his speech with the most amazing thing I have ever known in my life. Jamal told me that the doctor on board the ship is very skilled and can help anyone, and that the ship has prepared his clinic to be a small hospital capable of helping anyone who might get sick on the ship in the best ways available. And it seems that everyone trusts this doctor, who didn't find any logical explanation for what was happening with the cleaning team workers. They were suffering from symptoms that could not in any way be afflicted by young people. One of them was suffering severely from his heart, and when the doctor tried to examine him, he felt that there was a real danger to him if he moved or undertook any activity or effort of any kind. The other was completely normal, and suddenly his lungs became in such a bad condition that he could not even catch his breath easily. There are those who suffer from all the symptoms that indicate that they are suffering from a malignant disease. The symptoms were very strange and very rapid. How can someone turn from being in excellent health to a sick person on the verge of death within a short period of no more than a few days? It was unbelievable to me, but looking at my colleague who had just moved into the doctor's room, I could sense that something very bad had happened to him. I sat thinking about every word I had just heard, and after about half an hour, the rest of the colleagues returned to the room. My sick colleague was not with them. They sat as if in shock, and then I learned from them that my colleague had very high blood pressure. Unfortunately, the doctor said that it might get worse in the coming hours, and he might not survive. Everyone was in a state of shock, denial, and pain. I felt that I could not breathe well. I felt suffocated, so I moved quickly to smoke a cigarette on the deck of the boat. There, while I was busy smoking, I saw him again, the same Buddhist priest whom I had seen in his room several hours ago, and he was with someone. I didn't know why, but I have a feeling that I know that person from somewhere. This person was almost the same age as the Buddhist priest, and he seemed very excited and happy. I started looking at him with concentration, and then I remembered where I had seen this man. Yes, he was the same person I'd seen in the priest's room before he gave me the candy bars. But how did he turn like this? How? He's becoming younger like this. How he's becoming more energetic and youthful like this. It's confusing and suspicious to me, and I can't find any logical explanation for it. I finished smoking my cigarette and decided to head to the room. I made sure to pass next to the Buddhist priest and the other man. I heard the man forming the Buddhist priest, and my eyes met the eyes of the priest. I noticed that he was surprised by my presence or passing by him at this time. I do not know why, but something inside me told me to be careful. Who is this priest? And I will not lie to you. My previous experience taught me to believe my inner feeling and never go against it. I decided to focus on the Buddhist priest as much as I could. I had no clue that he might have done anything, but all I had was a bad feeling about this guy. The cleaning team manager decided to reassign staff because of the people who had fallen ill in recent days. That's why I had to clean the first part of the second floor rooms, as well as the first half of the rooms on the third floor. Work was going well until a new person fell into the cleaning team. This person happened to be cleaning the room of the Buddhist priest, who also gave him pieces of candy to eat as a thank you gift for cleaning his room. On the same day, I saw another person talking to the priest. The man thanked him with great enthusiasm and happiness. I couldn't tell if this person had changed like the man I saw yesterday or not, because I had never seen him before. But I felt strange and more anxious inside me towards this strange priest, who had very confusing looks. The next day, I had to enter and clean all the rooms on the second floor on my own, and for this reason, I had to enter the rooms from which the residents left according to their own time, and not at the time specified for cleaning, and therefore I would clean the rooms randomly, and after I finished one of the rooms on the second floor, as I left, I noticed that the Buddhist priest had left his room with one of the workers in the ship's restaurant. Here I noticed that this worker was holding in his hand a bag of candy that was very similar to the candy that the priest had previously given me. I wanted to go to him and talk to him and ask him not to eat that candy, but he was walking very fast, and I could not catch up with him. Here I had no choice but to go to the Buddhist priest's room and start cleaning it, and during the cleaning process, I made sure to look at all of this priest's belongings. Strange and terrifying at the same time, there was a small bag containing many papers, which of course I did not understand what they were, and with those papers there was an identity card, but it looked very old. On it was a picture of an elderly man who was at least 90 years old, but his appearance was familiar to me. I stood for a long time looking at that picture to find out where I had seen this person before, but to no avail. After more than 10 minutes of staring at that picture, I began to realize who this person was. Yes, he was the same young Buddhist priest. I could not believe it. At first, it was the same person. I thought that this person might be his father, or perhaps his grandfather, as he was very old, but no, he was the same person. The difference is that the picture is of an elderly person, while the one who lives in that room is a strong, healthy young man. I thought I would carry that card to a colleague who knows how to read to verify what is written on it, but I know that this is forbidden and could expose me to a big problem, and I still need to work badly, as I do not have a place to live, nor do I have any money, especially since I have not get paid for my work at Paradise, and I lost all my money when I decided to leave everything and jump in the water, so I have to continue and not cause any problems in order to continue my work and get my salary. After a long day of work, I decided to go to the restaurant to have a warm drink. The staff on the ship were allowed to go to the restaurant after 8 in the evening to drink any drinks for free. Truth be told, I did not go there just for the drink, but to confirm what I saw in the priest's room this morning. Unfortunately, my worst imagination happened. I learned from the restaurant workers that this young man unfortunately collapsed while working due to severe bleeding, and no one was able to help him, not even the doctor on the ship, who did not find anything he could do except give him some medications that would slow down the bleeding process. The entire staff in the restaurant was worried and thought that this young man would not survive. I was not able to finish my drink and decided to go up to smoke a cigarette on the deck of the boat. Here I saw him again, the same suspicious Buddhist priest, standing this time with one of the women. At first I did not know who she was, but after closer inspection, I noticed that she was the nice lady who lives on the first on the second floor. I did not recognize her except for her distinctive clothes. She loved bright-colored clothes and lots of roses, which made me recognize her. And here I began to realize what was happening. There was something in those candies the Buddhist priest gives to everyone who went to his room. He somehow manages to steal the health of the young workers on the ship and give it to the elderly passengers. I thought a lot about how I could uncover this trick, this hideous crime, but I did not achieve anything. I could not think of any trick with which I could uncover what was happening other than confrontation. I decided to go to the Buddhist priest and confront him with everything I knew. I talked to him and felt that he was evading. He spoke and did not tell the truth. And here many of the passengers on the ship and its workers began to gather around us. And then I began to tell them everything that had happened, everything I knew. But as usual, no one believed me. I grabbed his clothes and wanted to search him in order to take that evil candy that was stealing the health and youth of the workers in the ship from him. But he pushed me away, and with a quick movement, he threw something in his hand into the water. The ship's workers immediately took me away from him, and none of them wanted to listen to me. Rather, they decided to drop me off at the nearest port after giving me my wages for the days I worked on board this ship. I didn't know what to do when I left the ship that day. I had a feeling of anger because of what had happened with the workers on that ship, and because of this priest's denial of what he was doing, to the point that some accused me of being crazy and that all of this was just my imagination, and that diseases happen and anyone can get infected with them. What happened over the past few days was just a coincidence. Ridiculous and naive explanations that I cannot believe, and I do not know why I am exposed to all these horrible situations, why I fall victim to these people and who always have these sad endings. Perhaps the fault is my own. I am the one who attracts these events into my life, perhaps. On this day, I decided to return to the port where the ship I was working on was being repaired, and I returned again to the dirty hotel in which I was staying, and as I expected, my hideous room was still waiting for me as it was.